So today we're going to talk about Benelux versus Eastern Europe in the grand final of the Spike Nations tournament because it had a harbor in it. I wasn't really aware that they were allowed to use harbor in that tournament, but they were. And so we're going to take a look at this game. I know it's not like a full pro game, but it does have Scream and Navera in it, and the overall level I thought was, pretty competitive and pretty high overall. So I thought it was worth a watch. But before we get into that, today's video is being sponsored by Gosu Academy, who in just 5 days from now are running a 10-day Valorant bootcamp so you can get better at this game. And one of the sessions is being led by myself. Now, most of the sessions will be run by Nielsinho, who is a current pro head coach, was formerly on G2, was also an analyst for FPX, so definitely knows what he's talking about. And it will run from October 24th with some days in between to November 5th. And all classes will be recorded as VOD, so if you can't make every single session, don't worry about it, because you can always catch up. I will be running one myself, as I said, and you can join today, and it's a risk-free guarantee, money-back guarantee, no questions asked as well. You can go into the description or look at the pinned comment to go to this website and sign up today. It'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure. I know my session's going to be pretty fun. I'm sure you can learn a lot as well. So sign up today, and thank you, Gosu Academy, for sponsoring the video. So then let's dive in, and we'll start with the pistol round, and we're taking a look at Benelux here because they are the team running Harbor, and they're on the defensive side, and they're going to start off with Harbor towards B main, which was kind of where they normally had the harbor stationed. And one of the reasons for that is because, as we'll see just here, they're going to use this tidal wave water wall here, just down here towards B main and out through this position. And this is a very interesting use of it, right? Because obviously it blocks the line of sight for any of the attackers coming towards this area. And what they're going to do with it is they're going to have the breach and the neon come underneath the underpass and create, kind of a bit of a two-way attack here towards this area for when Eastern Europe are going to come here. And this is also a good conditioning tool, right? That in this round they are going to do this, right? And that means that, when they do this later on and they keep doing this, there's going to be problems for Eastern Europe that they have to worry about, this happening all of the time. They have to be worried potentially about people down here as well. And so that's why they are using this water wall as a good conditioning tool, and just to create, some problems and question marks for Eastern Europe that they need to kind of re-clear some of these areas. So you'll see, they start pinging on the map. Oh, there's this water wall here. Maybe they're worried about this close left as well. And eventually what's going to happen is Navera and the breach, Scream in the breach here will, find Eastern Europe just here. Scream will manage to get one kill before dying, I think, just pretty soon. The water wall comes in, as you see, but it's just a bit late and, perhaps a bit too far forward as well. Something that I think, again, as people get more used to Harbor, right, and particularly the timing, I think, because one thing you need to know about Harbor is if you just do the wall in a straight line, you can't stop it, but if you just curve it ever so slightly, you can stop it with a right click, I think, as soon as you do it, and this is something that you'll need to be mastering on Harbor. I think in this instance, actually, the wave is curved, but you need to be like doing it as soon as you can to try and help your teammates in these kind of circumstances if you are going to do something like that. But anyway, the round continues on, and what's going to happen is we're going to get the orb here, and this is something else that I thought was interesting, which is the pistol round buy, right? Particularly on the defensive side. This orb, obviously, on a pistol round is extremely strong. One of the best abilities on a pistol round because it takes so long to break with pistols, right? It takes multiple clips of pistol guns to break this, and so it's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of bullets, right? And so what IDEX has bought is he's bought the wave and the orb here and a shorty as well, which I think for defensive side is a pretty good buy for Harbor overall. And then just like he's doing here, sitting inside this orb, just ready to pounce essentially on this Harbor. I think, a very strong use of the Harbor on this pistol round on a defensive side, and you should probably be, using stuff like this because, as I said, it takes a long time to break this orb as the attackers here, as you will just see there. And then eventually what's going to happen if we just run this a bit quicker overall, because what's eventually going to happen is Eastern Europe are eventually going to come up towards this B site, and they're going to, go onto the B site and try and get this exec. As you see, IDEX still trying to play with that shorty. Eventually he's going to swap to the classic, and sometime soon, just now, they are going to try and come in to this site. But what you're going to see here is we got the water wall up just here, and I think that this is one of the crucial parts of how you want to use Harbor. And I think Harbor is an agent that has a big gap in terms of his skill ceiling and skill floor. Some agents are very easy to use, right? And the skill floor is very high. I think for Harbor, the wall, the E ability, is so important that you know how to use it and that you have creative ways of using it. I think as an ability, it probably has the highest skill level in just one ability than anything else. And the reason for that is is because there's so many possibilities with this wall, and as people get more used to this wall, and people use it more and more and get better and better with it, there's a ton of different things you can do. In this instance, what Benelux were doing was this wall, right, where it covers off, obviously, the choke point, but then also creates this little pocket here for you, potentially as kind of a survival smoke, you might say, where you can just live on the site back here and create a problem for your opponents that you might just be in there. But this really got me thinking, right, that there probably will be sites in the game or positions on different maps where you can create maybe 2 or 3 different pockets on a site that you potentially could be in, and you make your opponents play a guessing game essentially of where am I, right? And you're just in one of those different pockets all of the time, and it will be a nightmare for your opponents. I'm sure that probably is possible, and maybe in a couple of months time or whatever, people will figure out those kind of things for this agent. But I do think that if you are going to play Harbor well, you need to be thinking of creative ways of using this wall to give yourself and to give your opponents as many difficulties as many problems as they can, and for you to have as many little pockets to escape through. Because a lot of people have talked about, oh, this slow doesn't really do much, right? So yeah, don't use it as like a traditional normal smoke, because it's not a traditional normal smoke. You are going to have to be creative with it and find little ways you can use it to create little pockets like this. And ideally, you can find different ways of creating multiple different pockets that you could potentially be in, and that your opponents can't exploit. That would be a really powerful thing overall. And so, maybe get looking if you want to be a really good harbor. But you'll see eventually Eastern Europe coming down to the site, and they will get stopped. Good play by the breach there. And yeah, they managed to mop this round up and win the first round. Now let's come to round number 4, and the situation is this. We're going to get a little A exec here from the side of Eastern Europe, and they are going to manage to do pretty well here and get a couple kills and get in onto the site. And basically Scream is just left here on his own on site, and he's in, as you can see, quite a bit of trouble as, he's being attacked from 3 different directions. But Harbor is going to come in, pretty handy here as well, because the wall that IDEX is going to use, as you see just there, is basically going to cut off, 2 of these players so that they, can't see Scream. And basically he just is able to isolate the one fight instead, and is going to be able to get the kill because of that. As you'll see just here, he's even getting breach ulted as well, but he has time to actually get that kill and get out. But one thing, and you'll have to be very, very, wary of this as a Harbor, is the wall that IDEX put down. Perfectly good wall, right? It just kind of helps Scream keep his life there. But one thing you will have to be careful of is, of course, there is a little gap here. And in this instance, IDEX is going to see, I think, that maybe the Brim, like, just, coming out of the other side of the wall as the Brim tries to walk through here. You'll just see there, IDEX gets the kill. But you will have to be very, very aware of things like that, right? Where you might have a little gap in the wall, or, somewhere where an opponent can exploit. You need to be very aware of those kind of situations. And then we can just watch this, because Miss Potato is going to win a 1v3, and Scream is one of the players there. We're also going to see the wall-to-wall come across here. But, this is a pretty hype moment, I think, for any player to win a 1v3 against Scream. That is pretty hype just there. As you see, Miss Potato gets those first 2 kills and then will actually manage to get the third as well. Very, very hype moment. I can only imagine what it must feel like to win a 1v3 and one of the 3 is Scream, on like a big tournament like that. That must be a pretty good feeling. But yeah, we saw some interesting use of Harbor there as well, and something you need to be careful of. And now let's come to the very next round, and what's going to happen is they're going to get more aggressive here towards the B main, and they're going to push out of it, and the Scream actually has his ult as well, so he starts pushing, and initially Eastern Europe, it looks like, want to go towards A main, and they will destroy the Chamber Trap as well. They send in the Fade ult there as well, but Navera manages to get the first kill, and they get up here, and this is actually a save for them, and so IDEX only has a Sheriff, and he's going to use the wall here to get out. But as I said, one key thing is does he need the wall here? And this, again, I'm not blaming him, the agent's very new or whatever. You can just curve this wall and stop it right there, and it'll go up a lot quicker than it will, if you just let it go straight, because it has to wait all the way for it to get there. And so he actually ends up in some trouble. Luckily, he is able to survive, and the wall does go up, and he's able to kind of escape that situation and just get out in time. He even sends up the tidal wave as well, just to make sure he can get out. And now, again, they end up in a situation where they're still worried that he might be there, but he has fallen all the way back. And if, again, we run this a bit faster forward and get towards the end of the round, when Eastern Europe will make their hit, very much playing in the style. It's always funny that these Eastern European teams, they always play slow. It doesn't matter if it's in Spike Nations or whatever. They come towards A, they go back towards B, they hit the site with, barely any time. It just seems like it's born within them to play pretty slow. But we got some really good delay here, as you'll see. Really good breachal as they're trying to come in. Again, we get this water wall across the site, as you can see just here. Again, creating a pocket in there. But what I'm really going to be interested in here is how they use the orb, which they will in a second if we just come to the normal map. But what you'll see is, yeah, great breach utility here as it just continues to stop them. But IDEX has put down this orb here, and I really love this idea. And when I was watching this round, I was thinking, I would use the orb in the exact same way because the time is so low that they have to plant, right? And so Scream is here, right? And so by putting the orb on Scream, you're basically just protecting him in this area. And if they want to plant here, obviously, they have to plant the spike so Scream can, hopefully get the kill on the spike planter and then just win the round. But, there's no way that they can really deal with Scream at this moment in time. So they're either going to have to plant out, pretty much in the open or plant inside the orb and Scream can just go and get the kill. And I thought this was really genius because it's no good putting that orb, down on the choke point. It's no good putting that orb in here because they're just going to shoot it very quickly and it's going to be gone, right? So by putting it in this location, and I think, again, this will be an interesting way you have to realize how to use Harbor, is by putting it in a location that, they aren't going to be able to easily shoot. Basically, it's just a protective shield for Scream. That, Scream can't die here. He's completely protected. He cannot die and eventually ends up getting the kill on the spike planter and wins the round. And then let's come to the very next round, and we're in a 3v4 here for the side of Eastern Europe. They have the site, they're all located here, and we're going to see what the ult looks like here from Harbor overall. And I think as a, ult, it probably will be mostly used as a retake ult in it starts to come. And crucial thing is, right, and I think this is something that has been, grossly undersold, is the fact that these little stun things come up with a big tail in the air. And so this to me is, not so much about the stuns, but it's very much about the information that those stuns give. But also it does cause what's going to happen here to Theo, where Theo's going to have to come this way, then that way, then this way, and have to basically do a dance around these stuns to try and avoid, as you will see. So it does manage to get one kill, but then, as they're having to constantly move around and shift, and as those stuns are coming out, right, those circles on the ground and those tails in the air are basically telling, the players where these enemies are, and they're going to end up with a very successful retake, as you see just there. And, they are going to manage, I think, to win this round eventually, as Miss Potato, again, ends up in a 1v1 versus Scream. But Scream just uses his experience and knowledge here with such low HP. Lets the time run down. This is something that I think, again, Scream, look at him, just using all the time available and eventually manages to find that kill and win the round. And then finally, let's come to the attacking side for one final round, round number 15. And one of the advantages I think Harbor has on the new Fracture is this part of Vent here. And we didn't really see Eastern Europe attack, Sand too much. And I think one of the reasons is because they couldn't effectively smoke off this area. And it's, very difficult if you can't smoke off that area, to attack Sand. Because at any moment, someone could pop out of the smoke or they could already be there. And so you have to check a high-low angle. And it's not very easy. And I think in general, the idea behind this change was to make, this area of the map harder to attack. But Harbor is the one agent who can put a wall across here, right? Well, I guess Viper can, but then, the rest of the wall's going to be there, and that's not that useful. Whereas Harbor, you can put a wall across here and curve it across there, and maybe even towards Dish as well, right? And you get a very effective smoke of this entire area. And we saw a lot of Benelux's attack rounds come towards Sands. And I think that is an interesting... if we are going to end up in a meta where Harbor, isn't used too much early on, which is something that I do expect might happen considering the community perception. But if that's what we are going to see, I think, we will see a lot less Sand attacks in general. But then as soon as someone does pick it, you'll end up with this, where, you will get that wall going all the way across, right? And this is perfect for this attack, right, where this wall is covering all of it, and they can come in through Sands and they can create kind of a three-way crunch potentially, because Dish got easier to attack, you might say, from the drop area. You can potentially do this all of a sudden, right, a three-way attack. that is going to be pretty effective with Harbor here. As you see, the walls come up. You see how effective it is just there, right? And no one knows what's going on. Also, crucial point, and we haven't really seen enough fractures since the changes to kind of really mention this, but you need to be precise with this smoke. If you are using, a normal dome smoker, Brim, Omen, or Astra, you need to have very precise smokes here, right? Because otherwise what's going to happen here will happen to you where there's a gap. Right, so you need to be very, very precise with this. Otherwise, you will just be costing your team rounds. In that instance, Nevera didn't actually even get that kill, but you understand my point that that could be, a very dangerous situation. And eventually, what's going to happen here is Nevera and Scream actually end up in a 2v3, but it is Nevera and Scream, and so they are just gonna kind of just go on full destruction mode and manage to win that round. And ultimately, they would go on to win the map as well using Harbor. And I think overall, it wasn't that bad. I thought there were instances and uses of this agent where I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. And I think if, the mastery of this agent, and I do think it will take time to master this agent because of, the creativity possible with that wall. But once that does start to come in, I think that there, will be possibilities for Harbor to see, some play in pro games, or, if you can master it in your own games, I do think there is something there overall. And once more, thank you to Gosu Academy for sponsoring the video. You can go into the link in the description or at the pinned comment to sign up today for the 10-day Valorant bootcamp.